Hello and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Aussie writers and other creatives.
Hello, and I'm Lynn Testoni. I'm a journalist and a content writer as well, and Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we're bringing you all kinds of tips, ideas, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business. Hello, Rach. It's good to see you after that little school holiday break.
Yes, well, it wasn't much of a break for me as I've worked solidly, but it is nice to be back in the podcasting hot seat again. And we have a fantastic guest today, don't we? She's going to talk to us about something freelancers all need to know about, which is using social media to grow your business.
Yes, it's Sam McFarlane from Sam Says, and I'm really looking forward to what she has to say. I'm just going to read a quick bio of Sam before we get started. So, content marketing and social media is vital for business success. However, it's no surprise it's often neglected in an environment of competing demands. And we all know what that's like. Mm-hmm. So, Sam McFarlane from social media management consultancy, Sam Says, and I looked her up on the interweb and it was very clever. She helps busy entrepreneurs increase their online visibility and brand recognition by taking the overwhelming task of online marketing off their already swamped to-do lists. So Sam, thank you. Welcome, and it's great to have you on the Content Bite.
Thank you so much, Lynn. It's great to be here today. Thank you so much for having me.
We are really glad to have you. And I think you and I met virtually, didn't we, at the Gig Super Do-a-thon recently. I kind of dipped my head into the room when you were speaking, and I got so much out of what you were saying that I thought it would be really good to bring you on so you could share your wisdom with our freelancers who might be listening and might be struggling with their social media.
Thanks so much, Rachel. I'm super excited to share some tips with your audience today.
Great. So tell us a little bit about what you do, Sam.
So I help service-based professionals by creating on-brand social media to help them stand out online. My clients understand the importance of maintaining consistency on social media, but just don't have the time for it. So they use someone like me to manage it all for them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. I think it's very tempting.
Yeah,
we get a bit exhausted by all the things out there.
I'd quite like to hand all of my social media over to you. We can talk about that afterwards.
We had a guest on last year, John Espirian, and he said his tip was that it's easier to pick one form of social media, and he picked LinkedIn, and usually it'd be either LinkedIn or Instagram and go deep. Do you agree, or do you think it's better to spread yourself around a little bit? What social media platform works best?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with your guest. I always advise people to pick one social media platform and do it really well, rather than stretching yourself too thin, trying to be across all the different platforms. When it comes to working out the best social media platform for your business, I would recommend thinking about where your ideal client is spending their time online. LinkedIn is a great platform for business to business. It is a great place to get in touch with fellow professionals. And the thing that I love about LinkedIn is that you can publish your blog as content, as an article on there. So it's just another way to repurpose that content. Instagram is a very visual platform that only really allows you to have that one clickable link, which is in your bio. And photos and videos are really good to Instagram, but you can also repurpose your blog content on Instagram as well. So, you could turn a blog that might have 5 tips into 5 individual posts, or you could create a carousel of images to highlight each tip using a tool like Canva.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so interesting. Are you finding that you're often dealing with creatives who have freelance businesses, but perhaps aren't leveraging social media, as effectively as they could be?
Absolutely. These clients are so good at what they do, but they just don't often know how to share that on social media without coming across as being really salesy. So my advice is always to share with your followers the projects that you're working on, because that's a really great way to showcase your work. And it also gives people an inside look into your business and life as well, which is, what we all go to look at social media for.
Oh, interesting. So you think it's a bit more of about behind the scenes, showing the process is a good way to go?
I think definitely showing that behind the scenes can really bring people into your world. So it really helps with that know, like, and trust. which, in marketing, we all do business with people that we know, like, and trust. So, bringing people along that journey, they sort of feel like they're part of it as well. And so that can be a great way for people to get to know you.
Oh, interesting. What sort of mistakes or missteps do you see freelancers making on social when they're trying to build their businesses?
Look, I think with any business owner, it's probably that consistency. So not being consistent on social media. I think a lot of the time people think, I'm going to start posting on social media, and they do it for a while and it's working well. And then they get busy and they don't get time to post, so they sort of disappear. And when your followers see that you're on social media and then you disappear, they don't really know what's happened to you. So you stop showing up on social media, and so you stop being front of mind for people as well. But by maintaining that consistent social media presence, you'll always remain top of mind for people. And I'm not saying that you need to be posting multiple times per day. Think about what is manageable for you and then try and stick to that. And of course, don't forget to interact and engage with your followers on their social media accounts as well.
That's really interesting, actually. Like, do you think that sort of disappearing act that we all, fall into that hole from time to time when we're really busy? I definitely do. Like, I definitely have times, if I don't pre-schedule or think about it on a Sunday, that the social can be a bit patchy for the following week. Do you think that can have a really detrimental effect on your business if you're doing it a lot?
Yeah, I think if you were sort of showing up and, people are seeing you and they're interacting with you and you're engaging, and then all of a sudden you disappear, they're sort of like, oh, what happened? What happened to Rachel? Where's she gone? And then she comes back again and then she's gone. It kind of almost feels like it's hard to know what's going on. And so maybe there'll be a little bit of a mistrust going on. They're not sure, here you are and then you're not, and then here you are. And then they'll think, oh, here's Rachel again. She obviously needs some more work, something along those lines. So I think that consistency piece, and of course with the algorithm as well, if your followers are consistently engaging with your content and then you disappear, then you won't be showing up in their feed as much if you consistently show up and they're consistently engaging with your content. So you run the risk of that as well.
That makes sense. I think, like, it changes the impression that people have of you. And yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I know you've got some great tips for our listeners today, so let's dive right in. I mean, what are some great ways that freelancers can use social media to help them build that thriving business?
Yeah, so I've definitely got a few tips for freelancers to consider. So, at the outset, I'd really love, to have that long-term plan for their social media. So, building your social media profiles does take time. It's a little bit like, Pantene. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen. So you have to be a bit prepared to wait before you can start to see those results. And that's why showing up consistently really helps with, building out that roadmap and preparing, building your audience of people that know, like, and trust you. So that's the number one outset. So obviously have your long-term plan mapped out, and also don't be afraid to show off your work. I think a lot of us feel like, and it's, that tall poppy syndrome maybe that we have in Australia, that people think, oh, I can't be, showing that, or, what will people think? But showing off your work is a really great way to let people know what you do and how you help without you having to really say it. So I think, social media is a great way to give your work more exposure. And so you can kind of think of it as a bit of a portfolio of your best projects as well. And my final tip would be to make sure that you're being helpful on social media. So it's not just for creating connections and forming an online portfolio. You can post how-to guides, for example. You can share some insights and other valuable information that your audience will find useful. And that can be a really good way to position yourself as a leader in your field and really boost your credibility. Giving others the gift of knowledge makes you that really reliable source, which will likely have people returning to your page. They're not likely to unfollow you if you're consistently providing value. But I guess if you were, always promoting and trying to be salesy, then maybe people will either switch off to that message or they'll unfollow you. But if you're shown to be being helpful, then they'll definitely want to keep following you and eat up everything that you're sharing with them.
Wow, interesting. I know from your blog, you're big on having like a bit of a social media content calendar. Well, you talked a little bit about why it's good to maintain that, but how do you keep the momentum? I mean, I have to say that I've been really erratic on social media. I think that's partly because I have been in lockdown for 13 or 14 weeks. And honestly, there's not much happening here except me sitting on the computer. So I've really struggled in the last couple of weeks. What sort of tips about, so you don't get bored, keep that momentum going?
Yeah, look, absolutely. We're all over it, those people that are in lockdown, and I'm in Melbourne, the lockdown capital. So,
Yeah,
I think we've had more time. We've had more time in lockdown than out of lockdown in the last 18 or so months. Look, having a content calendar really does give you a bit of that roadmap essentially on what you're going to be talking about on socials, and having that content calendar mapped out for a month, say, means that you don't have to constantly think about, what you're going to post on social media. And when you take that time to really map things out, you'll find that you'll come up with a range of ideas as well. So, when you're sort of batch creating content, you'll sort of come up with a lot more ideas. So if you're thinking about, I want 4 promotional style posts, then you'll come up with them quickly rather than thinking, I need to promote, what am I going to talk about? So it really helps with that initial brainstorming, which can save from that last minute planning, and help you produce content consistently as well.
Wow. And how would you advise people to start that process? Would it be a case of creating, say, enough social tiles for a month and then keeping them in a folder in Google Docs or something like that? How do you kind of create that roadmap, a visual roadmap, I suppose?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would usually start with something as simple as an Excel spreadsheet. I'm the sort of person that writes the content first and then sources the imagery, but other people work the other way around. So whatever works for you. Yeah, so coming up with the content ideas, maybe thinking about what content pillars, things that you want to be known for, and then really, I guess, mapping out so you've got that consistent mix of content going out. And jump into Canva. It's a great free tool that I love using, and that you could create some branded memes in there, and then you could really make sure that you've got, I guess, that consistent look and feel of content going out.
I read recently actually that Instagram says the best engagement isn't 30 hashtags anymore, but it's more like 11 to 15. I got very excited about that, Sam, I have to say. Is that true, or is that fake news?
There are different statistics thrown around all the time, but you are right. The latest research that I've seen indicates that the new magical number of hashtags is 11. And I think, perhaps that comes down to after 11 hashtags, you could risk potentially becoming a little bit spammy. I mean, some business owners might find it hard to think of 11 hashtags that actually relate to their business, the industry or the niche that they're targeting, and what the post is about. So I would probably try and think of, if you can come up with 11 that relate to the business that you're in.
I have no problem coming up with 11. 30 I have a problem with, but 11 is fine.
Yeah. And with all these things, I always say, test and measure, because yes, there's all these people that come out with all these ideas, but ultimately, everyone's audience is going to be different. So, really, test and measure it. Try, one post with 11, see what the analytics tell you, mix it up a little bit.
Is that similar with the best times to post? I mean, has that changed in recent years? I mean, I guess that traditionally, like when I first did this, used to be you'd try and map the commuting times, but obviously hardly anyone's commuting at the moment. But so has these sort of things changed in the last year or so? Or?
Definitely. And it's so hard to predict now what, the best times are. And I think there's plenty of, information out there on the internet about the best times now, but they certainly have changed during lockdown. But what I usually recommend is, having a look at your analytics and letting that guide you. And then also, having a think about who your ideal client is and what might be going on in their day. And then, of course, testing and measuring. So I know, I was working with a client that was wanting to target mums, for example. So we found that sort of 2:30 in the afternoon was a good time for a post, because they might be sitting in the car waiting for, school pickup or something like that. But it all changes. So definitely see what the analytics are telling you, and then, do a bit of a test and measure.
That's a really good tip. I can definitely delve into the Instagram analytics, but with LinkedIn, I wouldn't even know where to look, to be honest. Is it easy to find them in LinkedIn?
Look, LinkedIn is a little bit trickier to find analytics. And so usually you have to go into each individual post to see how many people have seen it, what sort of job titles they had, how many likes, how many comments and things like that. So it is a little bit more complicated. You sort of have to go into each individual post to get that, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. So I think you touched earlier on how we don't need to be posting multiple times a day, but how often should we be posting on different platforms? I know that's the $1 million question. Sorry.
It is absolutely the $1 million question. A lot of it does come down to how much time we have as well. But as a minimum, I'd probably say on LinkedIn, you'd probably want to be posting a couple of times a week. And for Instagram, you might be wanting to post 3 times a week and have some stories going out if you could daily. But if that's not manageable, then I'd much rather you say, look, I can do 2 posts definitely every week, and then stick to that, or 1 post and just make that really good content. Because I think a lot of the time, when we're thinking, I've got to post every day, and the content isn't as good, I'd much rather see less content of better quality going out than more frequent content just for the sake of it.
Oh, that's interesting. Talk to us about your understanding of the customer and giving them what they want within reason. You spoke a little bit about not being too salesy. Is there a good ratio of how much value content and how much sale? Is there a good ratio of what to do?
Absolutely. So I think that, ultimately you want to show your customers that, that you're the expert in what you do. So showing that mix of content to your audience is a really great way to do this. So, including those educational style posts where you can share tips and tricks that show, that you know what you're talking about, but also sharing with people how they can work with you as well. So we still need to remember to let people know how they can do that, because I think a lot of the time, as business owners, we're sharing what we're up to, but we're not sharing how people can work with us. And that is an important piece. But people, it's that whole promotional salesy thing. We don't want to come across as the sleazy car salesman or anything like that. So we sort of hold back a little bit. But, you do have to have that sort of balance, so potentially, you could look at 4 very general content pillars, if you like. So you'd have that sort of educational style post. You'd have that promotional style post. You might have a connection style post where you're either asking your audience a question to try and get some of that engagement back, or you might be sharing some of that behind the scenes about what's happening in your business world. And then, as a 4th content pillar, potentially, if it works for your audience, would be like that inspirational type of post. Now that could be, an inspirational quote if you think that would work. That could be a beautiful image if, we're talking about Instagram, or you could even share someone from the community that you work within and sharing another business owner as a form of inspiration as well, because that's a great way, and then perhaps they'll showcase you on their social media and open you up to their audience as well. So, as a really general rule, mixing content around those 4 platforms should give you a good balance, I think, of content going out.
They're great ideas. I love those. Although, as we sort of move towards being more efficient with our socials and getting that roadmap together, we are still going to have times where we're like, oh, I can't be bothered. I don't have any inspiration. How can you get over that? I know for me, I sometimes look at what other people are doing on Instagram, or I'll just click the search thing and it'll come up with, lots of what other people have been posting in like the freelancer sort of niche. And that can be really good jumping off points for like, oh, that's interesting. And maybe I could do something like this or whatever. Do you have any other ideas on how to kind of pull yourself out of that social slump?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great idea, though, going and seeing what other people are doing and what's resonating with their audience. Going and looking, and this is where if you're planning out a month's worth of content, if you go and look at something like daysoftheyear.com that has, every day is like a different day. So there might be, National Donut Day. I think we had National Dog Day not that long ago. And if, those types of days relate to your audience, then you can share that. Another great tool that I love, which is free, is answerthepublic.com. Have you heard of?
We love that tool.
Yeah, we've
we?
recommended that a few times.
Yeah, so that's a great, free tool where you can type in, a topic or a question, and you'll get all the responses that people are actually typing into Google. So that can, give you hundreds of ideas of content to keep you going.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there are some things that freelancers in particular should think about, some good categories?
Or those pillars, like are there pillars you mentioned a couple of times that we need to set those pillars as part of our strategy?
I think setting up those pillars as part of your strategy just really gives you that, those steps that you can take to move forward, because at least if you've got those pillars, or some people call them buckets even, you can really start to think about the different types of content that you're going to discuss under those different pillars. So it can really map things out for you, so you're not always, sharing educational content, or you're not always promoting, or you're not always, sharing inspirational quotes. I think that's a really good way of just really being able to decompartmentalize things.
Yeah.
It's a long word.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that sort of, it's like a nice framework, I guess, isn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely.
I've never thought about it in terms of that. Like when I think of the Rachel's List social, I think it's got those pillars. When I think about it, they've evolved naturally, I suppose, in that feed over many years. But it is a really interesting way to think about creating that roadmap, like you mentioned, and not being so erratic in your marketing and your social media, for sure. But look, we're coming to the end of the podcast, but we always have to ask what your favorite social media tools or apps are, or what your favorite tools are. And obviously yours will be social media ones. You've mentioned Canva, but are there any others that you really love, either paid or free?
For sure. I'm really enjoying actually Creator Studio for Facebook and Instagram scheduling. That's a free tool. So that's a great way if you are mapping out your content to jump on there and schedule it all ahead of time. I do like Buffer for scheduling to LinkedIn. It's a really super easy tool that I find has a really great user interface. Obviously, Canva is great. Look, I've started using ClickUp, but I'm still getting my head around that as well. So that's more for project management, which again, there's a free and a paid version there.
Wow. So ClickUp is for social media project management.
Well, I use it for my project management. Airtable is actually one that I've come across recently, and I'm using that with another client, and we're able to bring in the actual content and the image and everything mapped out on that calendar. So anyone that's checking that can see, what's mapped out for the month, which is, I'm actually quite enjoying that as a tool as well. So that's another one to check out, which I think you've spoken about before.
Yeah, I think so. There's so many. It's hard. I mean, yeah, I've used Later and I quite like that, but it's a bit limited in certainly with things like LinkedIn and stuff. So there's so many.
Well, I use Buffer, but it's interesting that you use Creator Studio for Facebook and Instagram, and then Buffer for LinkedIn. Is there something different that Creator Studio offers that Buffer doesn't, or is there a reason why you would use different scheduling tools for different platforms?
With Creator Studio, I'm finding that I can do carousel posts in Instagram. Look, I know that Hootsuite's just brought that in.
Buffer doesn't have that.
Yeah, and I think with Hootsuite, you have to still push, you get that push notification, so you still have to push it out manually. Yes, and I sort of figure that it's Facebook's tool, so they must like you using it rather than a third-party tool.
Not a bad.
And
yes.
We're talking about free tools. With Buffer, you can have 3 accounts in their free suite, I think. But yeah, I guess I just like, those carousel posts more and more, being able to do that. And also you can schedule ahead of time IGTV as well. in Creator Studio. I'm trialing a different scheduling tool at the moment because I also provide analytics for clients. So that's Content Cal. It's a paid scheduling tool, but they're all same but different, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't have anything that I highly could say that I'm recommending at the moment there.
Yep. Great.
Wow. So we're near the end, but have you got any final words for our listeners who might need to revamp their socials and actually get some traction? Like if they, at the end of this podcast and they get in front of their computer, what should they do first?
Look, I think, having a think about what that platform you want to focus on is, because maybe, there's some people out there with some Twitter accounts and Pinterest and Instagram and Facebook and, LinkedIn, and they're not really sure where to start. Sort of think about, where that ideal client is, and think about what platform you actually enjoy being on as well. Because if we are going to be investing time, you want to make sure that you enjoy it. I know people that detest LinkedIn, they just can't stand it. And so, for them, any minute spent on LinkedIn is just a chore. So, really thinking about, okay, which platform am I going to look at and really invest in? And then, who is my target audience on there? What sort of content could really help them? And, I guess setting up those content pillars could potentially help determine what it is that you're going to be talking about. So really thinking again about what it is that you want to be known for as well.
If you were on every platform and you were going to drill down and go, right, I'm only going to focus on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever, should you shut all the other ones down?
Oh, that's a good question, because I have a Twitter account that is still there, but I never.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that. I've never been a Twitter person, really.
I've always wondered if I should just shut my Pinterest down, because I don't really post on it that much and it doesn't get that much traction, but there's all that content on there. So
I think the thing is, though, if you shut it down and then someone else took your handle, for example, then you would never be able to get it back again if that became, the hot place to be.
Yep.
So I think maybe you could put up a post and say, hey, I'm actually spending all of my time over on Instagram. Come and follow me here, or come and follow me on LinkedIn. Like maybe you could do something like that and sort of redirect people.
Yep. That's a great idea.
Shut it down.
Yeah.
And we haven't even asked, I was just going to ask about TikTok and Snapchat and all those things. I mean, like, maybe I'm getting grumpy and old, but I just think, oh my God, but TikTok is doing really well, isn't it?
TikTok is doing really well. And I actually saw someone in the recruitment space asking about, what they thought of TikTok, candidate interviews and candidate videos and things like that. And I thought, wow, this is definitely a platform to watch. I've certainly, spent a lot of time in TikTok looking at the content, not creating the content, and sort of trying to work out, it's very entertaining. And, when we're in lockdown, it's the place that everyone's spending a lot of time. So look, I think, and, I'd usually say if your audience is younger, then potentially TikTok is a place to look at. But I think the audience age is growing. So I think it's definitely one to watch. Instagram came out with Reels a little while ago. So that's kind of like the TikTok version for Instagram. Yeah, look, I think it's probably one to watch. Have a think about where your audience is and what sort of content you could potentially put out on TikTok, because it is very entertaining, but I'm sure that there would be a way that you could bring some sort of education in there as well.
Yeah, you just need to be an actor as well, don't you, on social media? Because I just cannot bear the thought of trying to be entertaining on TikTok or on a reel. People that do reels and they do the funny things that like flip around or they jump and suddenly they're in a new outfit. And I just think I spend so much energy and time wondering how they do it. I just have no idea.
I'm with you there. Yeah, I'm definitely happy to create the words and, sit behind my computer and master that rather than be, the actor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Although one of the dogs in dog park is an Instagram superstar with 1.5 million followers.
Oh my gosh.
A teacup chihuahua. Who knew?
Wow.
Apparently she's huge.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, that is funny. Oh dear.
Well, so much to know and so much to learn about social media. And because it constantly changes, we have to keep our finger on the pulse, I suppose. So, Sam, thank you so much for coming and giving us a snapshot of, where we're at right now and how freelancers can use social media more effectively to build their businesses. It's been really lovely to have you. Now, where can people find you and follow you and chat to you or give you work if they want to do that?
Sure. Thanks so much, Rachel and Lynn, for having me today. The best place to find me is probably my website, which Lynn mentioned before, so samsays.com.au, and I've got links to my social media accounts on there.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we'll pop that all into the show notes, plus some of the tools that Sam mentioned as well. So thank you so much, Sam, and thanks to everyone for listening, and we'll see you all again next week.
We will. Bye-bye. Bye.